You know, as crazy as it sounds, even though this season was technically the longest season ever in Destiny history, somehow, someway, it kind of flew by. With that being said though, the final shape is launching literally tomorrow. I still can't believe it's here. This is the final chapter in the Light and Darkness saga, the conclusion to where everything began 10 years ago. Fellas, whether Destiny 2 makes it to another annual expansion after this point or not, can I just say, it's been a hell of a ride. Truly, through thick and thin, somehow, we have made it to this point right here, which takes us to our 20 biggest changes that you can expect in the final shape. So without further ado, let's begin. Number 1, Prismatic Subclasses. For my folks that have not watched maybe a single trailer in forever, maybe you haven't played Destiny in years, Bungie has done what we thought to be impossible. They're giving us the ability to merge light abilities with dark abilities, and therefore dubbing this subclass Prismatic. Now, for those of you that don't understand that, it literally means what I just said. You could be a hunter with your Shadow Shot Deadfall as your super, Withering Blade as your melee, Arcbow Grenades as your grenade, and Gunpowder Gamble, as well as Stylus Executioner as your aspects. It's pretty wild. We never thought this would actually be a thing in Destiny. Most of us thought if there was ever going to be a sequel for Destiny, that being D3 or whatever, then we might have this ability. But Bungie is bringing it to us now, and it's going to be a very important part of the final shape. It's going to literally be interwoven into the final shape campaign, which means it's going to show up pretty early on in that first mission that we got to play just a few weeks ago. And you're going to start with a curated set of starting abilities for each class. And no, it doesn't matter whether or not you unlock these abilities before. Prismatic is its own thing. So if you're just now picking the game up for the first time, no worries. Your kit is going to be just like my kit, with the rest of our abilities being obtained throughout the Pale Heart as mission rewards, post-campaign quests, and collectibles that are hidden in the world. Now, within this new subclass is also a feature called Transcendence. Think of this as like a mini super bar. You'll need to deal light damage to fill one half and the dark damage to fill the other half. And then when those things meet in the middle, now you have the ability to transcend. And essentially casting this ability refreshes your melees, your grenade energy. They also allow for them to regenerate more quickly. It gives you a damage buff on top of it. But additionally, each class will be given a specialty grenade exclusive to your class while transcending. So for my hunters, you're going to be getting the Hellfire Spike, which is this combination of stasis and solar. Titans, you get an electrified snare, which combines strand and arc. And then lastly, we have warlocks, who honestly have my favorite grenade, the Freezing Singularity. This combines void and stasis. Now, we do have an entire video breaking down Prismatic if you want to look at that in more depth, as we got to play with it all just a few weeks ago. Let me just say, guys, it's potent. And what's crazy is in the second week of the final shape, it's going to get even more potent. Taking us to point number 2, new supers and abilities. Now, I know Prismatic is what everybody's really focused on. I mean, how can you not be? Light, darkness together, come on. But we're also getting new supers, as well as new aspects. For instance, hunters are getting the Storm's Edge Arc Super, which is pretty much the spiritual successor to Blade Dancer from back in Destiny 1. But you remember back in D1 when you would actually sit there and blade toward an enemy, but you would stop right in front of them, and they would just easily follow with a shotgun melee to take you out? Yeah, back in the day, we used to get short stopped pretty often while using Blade Dancer. But with Storm's Edge, you won't have that problem. You literally just throw the knife at the enemy. Then you proceed to instantly teleport directly to that knife, do an AoE effect, and murk everything around you. For my Titans, we have Twilight Arsenal, where essentially we summon these void axes that we can throw, they weaken, they do a tremendous amount of damage, and then they also drop the axes on the ground. So you and your teammates can literally pick them up and either use them as melee weapons or just throw them again. It's quite annoying inside of PvP, just saying. Then for our last super, we have Song of Flame. This allows you to spam pretty much all your abilities. Plus you have a custom Wisp grenade that, as you can see here, track pretty aggressively. Detonates, scorches. This is like a more amped up version of Sunsinger from back in D1. Now, something that I don't know if I clarified enough the other day that I want to take a moment to clarify here is that these supers, although they are present on the Prismatic class, they are also present in your base classes. Meaning if you want to rock Storm's Edge with nothing but arc abilities on Arc 3.0, you most definitely can. And the same with Twilight Arsenal here and Song of Flame. They are available on both Prismatic and the respective subclasses. Now, these 3 new supers aren't the only new things we're getting. We're also getting new aspects. We have Ascension, which is a cute little staff twirl from my hunters here. So let me just add, it's quite potent. Unbreakable, which is a Titan aspect that allows you to consume your grenade, but gain the ability during that time frame to tank a lot of damage. Then lastly, Warlocks. You've got another buddy. And yes, you guys saw what I was doing doing the other day. I was literally rocking Getaway Artist, Bleak Watcher, and Hellion, which as I consumed my Arc Grenade, I was dropping a Bleak Watcher turret. I was giving myself an Arc Soul, and I was casting my Rift for my Hellion Solar Buddy. And let me just go ahead and take this a step further. You can also use No Time to Explain and give yourself another buddy on top of these buddies. I swear, Warlocks, at this point, you don't even have to play. You do your abilities and you walk away. Just literally let the game play for you. Overall, though, guys, these are very good abilities, very good supers that I look forward to playing with on both Prismatic and within their own subclasses. Change number 3. Guys, we're getting a new destination. And although that may seem like a no-brainer considering this is an annual expansion, this one's a bit different. We are going inside of the Traveler, something I've been wanting to do since day one. This destination will be known as the Pale Heart. Now, one thing I didn't really get to touch on our impressions video of the final shape was just how massive this destination really is. It has 7 different sections: the refraction, the divide, the seclusion, the transgression, the blooming, the landing, the impasse, as well as Little Miami. Nah, I'm just kidding. But no lie, these names a little daunting, right? Now, a point Bungie keeps driving about this destination is that it's linear. And what they mean by that is that each part of the map literally progresses to the next section, unlike other destinations where you can just go off in whatever direction you like. This is a quote from former game director Joe Blackburn. On one end, we got the portal, and then on the other end, we've got the Witness, who's built this giant monolith. So every single area that we've built is built in a consecutive line from one to the other. Now, as also said, at the end of the campaign, they're going to open up the entire Pale Heart, which will react to us and what we're doing. Now, we've already seen quite a lot from the Pale Heart, at least visually. There's tons of references like return of the original D1 Tower. We've seen the Tree of Silver Wings, a highway of destroyed cars at the very first mission on the Cosmodrome, aka I-95. And there's almost this horror aspect to the Pale Heart the further you progress into it. And lots of fingers. I don't know, some people are feet guys. The Witness, he likes hands. Now, I'm really hopeful that the Pale Heart is gonna live up to essentially what we've been looking forward to for the past 10 years. So without a doubt, expectations are high. We'll see if it pans out. Change number 4. Here's something we never thought was gonna happen. We're getting a new enemy race. This one called the Dread. Lovely name, right? Inside of the Pale Heart, we will be facing a brand new enemy race called the Dread. And this is really actually the first new enemy race that we have had in a long time. Like, yes, Scorn is new, but lore-wise, not really. I mean, different from Fallen, but still same. But the Dread, though, they are in fact different in like every single way. You've got the Grim, which are these flying enemies described as bats with guns. Not only do they shoot, but they also have like the screech attack that suppresses your abilities. Cute stuff, right? You've got Husk, which have these melee weapons on both arms. They move fast, and if you kill them in the wrong way, they've got this worm thing that comes out of their body and explodes. Then you got the Weaver and Attendant. These are the Stasis and Strand Scions reshaped by the Witness. Now, the Attendant has a Stasis ability that shoots at you and they will freeze you. The Weaver has a Strand ability that shoots a strand weave at you and literally will yeet you across the map. We then have the Harbingers and Omens, which are our Strand and Stasis subjugators. Now, we've seen these guys. They're the big boys. The Harbingers shoot the strand attack at us that will actually suspend you. And yes, they take full advantage. They're not going to suspend you and be like, oh no, what do I do now? No, they suspend you with the intention of bending you over. Then you got your Omens. They fire this wave of stasis crystal at us that can slow and freeze us. Now, of course, an enemy type that we've been very familiar with over the past year is Tormentors, which is like the crazy uncle of the bunch. But yeah, they're still dangerous. For my folks that want a challenge, I'll just say this is going to be the most annoying alien race you have ever faced in Destiny. Have fun. Change number 5. On the topic of Prismatic, there's one thing that's really going to complete that subclass: exotic class items. Exotic class items are items that you cannot utilize on any other class except with Prismatic. But the reason why these exotic class items are going to be so desirable is that they're going to be taking the main effect of other exotic armor perks and combining them together. So for instance, Necrotic Grips and Claws of Ahamkara. Your exotic class item, in this case, will now have the Spirit of Necrotic and the Spirit of Ahamkara. And then it's gonna combine them together, giving you like a super exotic. Now, these are gonna be randomly rolled. But fortunately for us, we've already gotten to see everything they can roll on these exotic class items. And I'm sure Bungie's gonna add more to this in the future. Now, because they are so potent, these exotic class items are not gonna be launching this week. Instead, they are gonna be launching next week with the launch of the first episode in Destiny. And if you're confused on what the hell an episode is, don't worry, we'll get to that in just a moment. The main takeaway for this, guys, is that these exotic class items, which is something we got to play with as well, this is what really takes Prismatic to that next level. The ability to merge exotics together. Again, check out our Prismatic deep dive video if you want to know everything that can roll on these exotic class items. Change number 6, power level changes. Now, the power grind every year has always been a big part of the expansion. With the final shape, Bungie are making some pretty massive changes to how power works. And there's a lot happening here, so we're going to try and explain this as simply as we can. First up, fireteam power is now a thing. This is essentially going to make it easier to play with friends, no matter if they play every day or haven't played in months or even years. What fireteam power is that the player in your fireteam with the highest power level will become the power leader, and all the other players in the fire team will be brought up to 5 power below the power leader. Meaning if the highest level person in your fire team is at 1965, everyone else in the fire team, no matter what, will be at least 1960. And if they're over that level, great, they'll be over the level. Now keep in mind, fire team power only affects activity difficulty, and your unadjusted power level will still determine the power of your rewards that drop. Meaning if you're actually 1500, but your power level in this fire team is set at 1960, you're not going to be getting 1960 gear. You see where I'm coming from? At the same time, you will be still getting gear that's going to increase your level. You're just not going to be able to completely skip things by just jumping in a fire team with someone who's high power level. Additionally though, if you are the power leader in your fire team, you'll get a boost to any commendations that you earn at the end of the activity. You'll see the adjusted power level right next to the activity power cap, so you can tell how far under you may be. And for instance, the example here, the adjusted power is 1995 and loading into an expert nightfall at 2005. Now power bands are also being improved in the final shape. Normally the soft cap is 150 power levels. Now it's being reduced to 40, meaning our new power floor when the final shape releases will be 1900. The soft cap will be 1940, the powerful cap will be 1990, and the hard cap and pinnacle cap will be 2000. Now look, if these terms and numbers confuse you, don't worry about it. I don't even pay attention to it, and I play this game every day. Essentially, just go shoot the bad guys. And in this case, you'll easily reach that soft cap being 1940 when you play through the final shape campaign on either difficulty, but if you complete the legendary version of the campaign, you'll get an entire gear set at 1960 power, which is plus 20 higher than the powerful band. Now power level and activities is also being made much easier to understand. Essentially, they'll be split into 2 categories, power enabled and power disabled. Power disabled activities will play the same for everyone, regardless of your power level. Power disabled activities will include both normal and legendary campaign difficulties, seasonal story missions, free roam destinations, Crucible, and some legacy content. But activities that are going to be power enabled will include things like Vanguard playlists, Nightfalls, seasonal activities, exotic mission rotators, Trials of Osiris, as well as raids and dungeons. And there's also going to be a new difficulty tier, which you can see on the screen here. You've got Standard, which is 1945 power cap. Examples are Vanguard Ops, seasonal activities, exotic missions, raids, dungeons. You've got Advance, which was previously known as Hero, which is 1995 power cap. Example being Nightfalls. Expert, previously Legend, which is now 2005 power cap. Examples include Nightfalls, Lost Sectors, seasonal activities, and exotic missions. Master, which is 2010. Examples include Nightfalls, Lost Sectors, raids, and dungeons. Grandmasters, which is 2020. Examples being Nightfalls, and then Contest Mode, which power caps is at 1965. And this is for the first 48 hours of the launch of the new raid. Now, what that really boils down to is that as long as you do the legendary campaign, your character will pretty much be leveled to take on the day 1 raid, as you're going to be at the contest mode power cap anyways, or close to it. Now, another thing that's being changed is Bungie has made power account wide. Now, what that means is if your hunter is 1965 power, when you switch over to your Titan or your Warlock, your gear rewards will also be around your hunter's level. Crazy quality of life change. Now, the power you earn from rewards will also be changing for the better. In the past, only select activities such as ritual playlists had a chance of dropping a powerful reward with +1 power to your gear between the soft cap and the powerful cap. Now with the final shape, Bungie's extending that to just about every reward source in the game. Additionally, the power of rewards purchased from vendors and collections is changing, and all items purchased from vendors will now drop no lower than 3 below your highest possible power. So no more grabbing something from collections, only for it to be at the minimum power level. Now last up, your power bonus from seasonal artifacts will be rebalanced, given that episodes will now be longer than seasons previously. But the goal is for actively engaged players to still attain similar artifact power levels as before, and for it to remain a rewarding pursuit. Now I know this was a very, very long section, and I don't want to make any of my new players too wary of this. My only suggestion, if you feel up to it, jump into the legendary campaign. It's going to be challenging for sure, but you're going to come out of it with a more rewarding experience and better gear overall. Change number 7, weapon unsunsetting. I know you're probably like, Cross, why not just call it sunrise? Dude, I tried. Nobody's getting behind it, I'm just saying. But this was something I never thought would ever happen. Bungie is reversing sunsetting. Now, for those that are not familiar with what sunsetting is, at one time, Bungie had the fantastic idea of saying, hey, let's give you potent gear, and then after about 12 to 14 months, we're gonna raise the level of everything else but that gear, therefore sunsetting some of your favorite pieces of loot. Luckily for us, Bungie has realized the error of their ways. Now, this is also made possible because Bungie is going to be removing power limits from legacy gear. Essentially, as Bungie was developing Fireteam Power, they noticed this could sidestep the whole point of legacy gear in the first place. So along with the goal with the final shape of wanting you to always be able to play with your friends, the decision was made to remove that power limit. Unfortunately though, if you previously deleted sunset gear, there's nothing you could do about it. Should have kept it, man. There's a reason my vault stays slam year round. But fret not, Bungie's going to be reintroducing sources for most or all of these sunset weapons, and it's going to be updated. They're going to have origin traits, new perks, new traits, things like that. And let's be frank, a lot of those weapons have been power crept so hard that even if you did keep most of these, a lot of them you wouldn't even be using. At the same time though, if you've got that Gondro Kindle Orchid or whatever highly coveted weapon that has been previously sunset, now is the perfect opportunity to flex on some clanmates. Change number 8. Seasons are dead. Bungie is rebranded. We now have episodes. Dude, it's actually wild. Season of the Wish was the last season ever. And let me just say, it was a great season. But now we're going to be getting episodes. Now, episodes are going to be different in a couple of different ways. For instance, they're going to be 4 months long instead of 3 months. They're also going to be split into 3 separate acts. Now, the 3 episodes that are lined up for this year are all going to be about the consequences and aftermath of the final shape. The episodes are planned to be more cinematic than any season we've ever had before. They're also supposed to be standalone and can be played and experienced in any order, regardless if you've been playing since the beginning or if you're brand new, which can be both a good and bad thing. And really, it's going to come down to the individual delivery of those episodes. Now, the first episode we're going to be getting in the second week of the final shape is called Echoes. And with this releasing in week 2, it's going to be right after the raid. So whatever narrative consequence we have from the raid, that's what's going to kick off this episode. Now, each episode is planned to bring us a new exotic weapon and a new exotic mission, with each act featuring new quests, stories, activities, weapons, armor, new artifact mods, as well as new season pass ranks, or whatever we're going to be calling it. And considering the episodes here are going to be longer than our previous seasons, we of course have to have additional season pass ranks, which takes us to change number 9. New artifact mods, guys. But not just new artifact mods. We're also getting additional artifact mods throughout the episode. Because of the length of the episode, we are going to be getting additional artifact mods as that episode goes on. Now, as for what we're going to be getting this week, Bungie's already revealed that. We've got anti-barrier pulse rifle, which is perfect for the pulse rifle buff, unstoppable sidearm, unstoppable scout rifle, overload hand cannon, anti-barrier SMG, overload swords. We've got a number of different perks that enhance certain weapons with certain origin traits, such as overcharged armory, Saint's inspiration, winning hand, and logic reductor. But then we start getting into those more spicy artifact perks. There's a lot of focus on swords, void weapons, and transcendence. We got blade stamina, which states that rapidly defeating combatants with a sword refunds some ammo. Argent blade, which reads while we have an armor charge, dealing damage with a sword consumes that armor charge and empowers your sword for a short time, granting it bonus damage and energy charge rate. And for void weapons, we have artifact mods that allows us to gain void overshields when defeating weakened targets, and arguably the strongest artifact mod, expanding abyss, which states that void sources deal increased damage to weakened targets. And we have an entire video covering weapons that we think are going to be potent with these artifact mods. The main thing is, as the season goes on, we'll be tacking on more and more artifact mods to our artifact, which I'm really curious to see how Bungie is going to balance all that. Now, change number 10, we are getting a ton, and I mean a ton, of weapon sandbox changes. Now, this is some pretty big stuff. So we're going to be splitting it up into multiple sections, and we're also just going to be talking about what we feel are the most important sandbox changes here. Now, yes, we will be doing a pre and post video, essentially comparing what was to what is. But starting with our general weapon sandbox changes, first up, Bungie is removing spec mods. That's right, guys. Boss spec, Taken spec, minor spec, major spec, adept big one spec, they are all going bye-bye. Now, the bonus damage that exotic primary weapons and exotic trace rifles receive against minor enemies are being reduced just slightly, from 40% down to 30%, with the exception of Fighting Lion. Now, to counter spec mods being reduced, most archetypes are receiving buffs across the board. Pulse rifle damage is being increased by 20%, exceptions being Graviton Lance and Revision Zero's Heavy Burst Mode. Pellet shotguns damage is being increased by 10%, exceptions being Legend of Acris, Tractor Cannon, Conditional Finality, and Fourth Horseman. Slug shotguns are getting a 9% damage increase. Fusion rifles, a 7% increase except for 1000 Voices. Sniper rifles are getting a 7% increase except for Izanagi's Burdens, Hone Dead Shot, and Cloud Strike Storm. Glade projectiles are being increased by 7%. Linear fusion rifles by 5%. Certain weapon types are also getting increased damage against minor red bar enemies, which will stack on top of the previous buffs. Sidearms, trace rifles, scout rifles, and bows are being increased by 20% against red bar enemies. Auto rifles and pulse rifles increased by 15%, which Graviton Lance and Revision Zero's Heavy Burst mode also get this buff. SMGs are getting a 10% increase, and hand cannons are getting a 5% increase against red bars. Trace rifles are getting a 20% increase against majors, and machine guns and swords are both getting a 7% increase globally, which will also include PvP. Now, Bungie's also going to be doing some nerfs. Things like Sunshot, Trinity Ghoul, Polaris Lance, and Graviton Lance are getting their splash damage reduced by 10%. Now, we also have various other changes, like kinetic damage weapon types will no longer deal bonus damage to bosses, but still will against other combatant tiers. There's various sub-archetype naming changes happening. Some lower stat 120 round per minute hand cannons are getting their stats raised slightly. Low inventory sniper rifles are getting the reserves increased. Waveframe grenade launchers are going to have their wavelength tied to blast radius, and special waveframes are seeing their wavelength reduce. There's also going to be some various tunings to things like chain reaction on special weapons, chill clip being nerfed on rapid fire fusion rifles but unnerfed on everything else, and deconstruct no longer pulling ammo from thin air. Main takeaway from this, guys, we will be doing pre and post testing on everything. Change number 11, exotic weapon changes. Guys, we have a ton of exotic weapon changes coming with the final shape, both buffs and nerfs. We're going to be going over the biggest ones first. Divinity is getting another nerf. They're going to be increasing the number of shots required to generate the cage by 75% in PvE. Lament's healing effect is being reduced by 20%. They're also reducing the damage of the high end of the chained heavy attack by 20%, which is really odd considering that there's so many other swords that actually out-damage Lament. Colony is getting an interesting rework, which we got to play with, where it now spawns additional insectoid robots on final blows, and up to 5 of these can spawn from tougher combatants. Necrochasm is getting a massive buff. Its catalyst is getting a big rework and will be called One for Thrall, where damaging 3 combatants in quick succession provides a period of increased damage, range, and aim assist. No lie, guys, we're going to be using Necrochasm right out the gate at the launch of the final shape. Osteostriga now has a 4-second cooldown on the poison burst on kills. Touch of Malice's Darkness Ball burn duration is being increased from 2 to now 3.5 seconds. Dead Man's Tale is getting yet another rework, this one being like the 5th one. But no lie, guys, after this change, I think it's going to be back for PvP. Truth is getting a huge buff. Dude, somebody's trying to make Truth meta. They're increasing its AoE damage substantially, considering that the weapon can't deal impact damage. And it's getting its reserved increase by 3. Ariana's Vow will now cause ignitions when breaking a match shield or when piercing barrier champions, which is really good. Bastion and its Saint Fist perk is being reworked, where dealing damage with melees increases your charge rate, damage, and reload speed for a short duration, and landing the majority of the pellets in a burst increases your melee damage. Again, full list of the exotic changes will be linked below, but all of these are looking absolutely juice. Change number 12. Fellas, there's a reason we have split this up in 3 different sections, but we have some major ability changes. Now, something a lot of people have been asking for a very long time is some buffs to our stasis subclass. Bungie's giving it to us. They're also giving us a new keyword, this one called Frost Armor. Now, similar to Woven Mail, Frost Armor will reduce damage from PvE combatants, but you'll be given stacks of resist, and it'll be 4.5% per stack and 2% per stack against enemy players. And this can stack up to 5 times with a 9-second timer. At the same time, the Fragment Whisperer Rhyme has been reworked and will now increase the maximum duration of your Frost Armor to 13 seconds and increase that stack count to 8. Now, all of our harvest aspects now have new behaviors and will allow stasis shards to grant a small amount of health and a stack of Frost Armor. Whisper of Chains will no longer grant passive damage resist when near stasis crystals or frozen targets, and instead will now grant a chance to create stasis shards when defeating a target while you have 1 or more stacks of Frost Armor. Whisper of Fractures no longer increases melee energy regeneration while surrounded, and will now grant a stack of Frost Armor when you shatter any frozen target with a melee attack. Now, for Whisper of Torment, grenade energy gains are no longer dependent on your current health value. Base grenade grenade energy regeneration amount per incoming damage event is increased from 5 to 7%, and while you have frost armor, energy per damage event is increased from 7% to 12%. There's also going to be 2 brand new fragments that are being introduced. First, we have Whisper of Chill. This allows stasis weapon final blows to have a chance to create a stasis shard. Then we have Whisper of Reversal, where while you have frost armor, dealing or receiving physical melee damage slows your victim or attacker. Now finally, for our stasis changes, base stasis shatter damage is being increased from 200 to a whopping 400. So yes, guys, lots of big changes for stasis. For some of our other ones though, Well of Radiance is getting a hefty nerf. It will now grant Radiant for 8 seconds even when players exit the well, which is great, but Bungie is reducing the healing per second from 100 to 50 health points. They're also increasing heal on cast from 40 to 300 health points, allowing you to panic pop, but they're reducing damage resistance versus non-boss combatants from 40 to 20%. They're also reducing damage resistance versus boss combatants from 40 to 10%. Now, if you're looking at this thing, God dog it cross, that looks terrible. Fret not. There's been an increase in maximum orbs of power when defeating targets while standing inside of a Well of Radiance from 4 orbs to now 5. You're welcome. Word of Dawn is also receiving some changes. Its Armor of Light overshield is being removed and now immediately applies a full void overshield to the caster and ally who enters the bubble. Armor of Light instead now grants additional damage resistance to players, which inside will be 30% against enemy players and 60% against enemy combatants. Now allies near Word of Dawn will have a void overshield that trickles on over time. Now it says similar to Bastion, but that's kind of immediate. We'll have to just see how that is. Now Weapons of Light will be removed. You will not get Weapons of Light with Bubble. This will now be exclusive to the exotic Helm of Saint 14. So if you want Weapons of Light, you gotta use Helm of Saint 14. Now the Word of Dawn caster can now generate additional orbs of power by defeating enemies with melee attacks in or near Word of Dawn. Now other abilities that are being changed here, various arc abilities are being buffed, the biggest of which is Titan's Thunderclap, which hardly anyone even use. Knockout is receiving a big rework. Its damage bonus increased by 25 to 50%, and its healing being changed to now grant chunks of health based on enemy type. On Solar, Hunter Marksman Golden Gun is being nerfed to now reduce the strength of the orbs it creates. For Titans, Consecration is getting another buff. It can now shatter stasis crystals, which is perfect for Prismatic, and its ignitions deal 20% additional damage to PvE combatants. On Void, Shield Throw for Titans can now bounce 5 times. It also lasts a second longer. The tracking is also being increased, and its damage is going up by 20%. Both Warlock Nova Bomb variants are being buffed, thank God. Cataclysm now has 6 Seekers instead of 4, and Vortex will now last for 10 seconds instead of the normal 7. Then for Strand, look, there's a lot of stuff happening on Strand. Everything seems to be targeting Titans and grapple melees. Let me just say this. It's either going to be dead or somehow, magically, it's still alive. I promise you, we'll be testing this week. Now, change 13, exotic armor changes. Lastly, for our Sandbox changes, we have exotic armor changes. Again, we're just going over the most crucial changes as there's a lot of minor changes here. For Hunter, Renewal Grass will now grant frost armor to you and your allies upon entering that Dustfield grenade. This will grant an additional stack every 0.9 seconds, and it resets the timer. Star Eater Scales is actually receiving a nerf. It will now need 6 orbs instead of 4 orbs for maximum benefits. And when using Golden Gun, the super energy from orbs is being reduced from 2% per pickup down to 0.5%. Foe Tracer is being updated to match the ability used to damage the target instead of your subclass so that it can work with Prismatic. Triton Vice and its glaive detonation no longer needs to match your equipped subclass, and its surrounded effect now lingers for 5 seconds. For my Titans, Ursa Furiosa will now work with the new Void aspect Unbreakable. Eternal Warrior no longer requires an arc subclass to grant its arc weapon damage bonus, therefore allowing it to work with anything and pair with Prismatic. Capricorn is receiving a nice buff. Its Solar Blast is being increased by 100% in PvE, and it now scorches each time it hits a target instead of just once, and it will work with Ember of Eruption and Ashes. Syntheseps is receiving a nerf to biotic enhancements. It will now linger for 5 seconds instead of 8. Last but not least, Warlocks, Ballador's Wrathweavers will now grant frost armor to you and nearby allies when activating your Rift with the Frost Pulse aspect. And activating your Super Shatter attack will grant nearby allies max frost armor stacks, as well as yourself max stacks when your super ends. Verity's Brown now requires weapon final blows to match your grenade instead of your subclass to work on Prismatic. Some racers' solar grenade duration is being reduced from 4 to 2 seconds, and its increased grenade recharge rate now allows a max of 4 grenades instead of 5. And finally, Cenotaph Mask is being slightly nerfed, where multiple players can no longer trigger its effect on the same target, and the visual marker now only appears for allies and not the wearer. Change number 14, crafting and enhancement changes. One of the most amazing things that Bungie is doing in the final shape is that they're allowing many of the weapons that we have been grinding for, trying to get that perfect god roll for, especially our shiny rolls from Brave Arsenal. We will have the ability to enhance those perks. Now this is something new. These are weapons that aren't even fully craftable. We'll have the chance to go in there and enhance all the traits in that 3rd and 4th column together. And these weapons will also gain a weapon level and a memento sockets. Now to do this, you want to go to your weapons inspection screen and insert the enhancement tier mod for standard currencies, which will be enhancement cores. And raid adept weapons will continue to use spoils of conquest. Now at enhancement tier 1, this replaces your masterwork and will place the weapon with an enhanced intrinsic that matches the stat of your old masterwork. You also get a weapon level, a date from when you first enhanced it, and that memento socket. Now for raid adept weapons only, you'll be able to visit the relic on Mars and you can adjust your first 2 column perks. Now at enhancement tier 2, you unlock this at level 11. This will allow you to make those 3rd column perks enhance. Then at enhancement tier 3, this will be unlocked at level 17 on the weapon, allowing you to enhance those 4th column traits. Now here are the list of weapons that will have the ability to be retroactively enhanceable. Overall guys, if you got that god roll already, it's about to get even nastier. Change number 15. We have a number of economy changes. When the final shape launches tomorrow, legendary shards will be completely removed from the game. Now they've already been removed as a currency for a lot of things over the past 6 months, but this change was announced quite a while back. So I really do hope you spent these. Now with these changes, there's also going to be changes to what we get back when we dismantle items. So for instance, a rare item will give us 75 glimmer. Legendary armor will give us 1,000 glimmer and a 25% chance of enhancement cores, as well as 10 gunsmith rep. Exotic armor will give us 2,000 glimmer and a 60% chance of an enhancement core and 20 gunsmith rep. Legendary ghosts will give us 1,000 glimmer. Exotic ghosts will give us 1,500 glimmer. Legendary weapons will give us 1,000 glimmer and a 25% chance of an enhancement core and 10 gun rep. And exotic weapons will give us 2,000 glimmer and a 60% chance of an enhancement core and 20 gun rep. Now mementos in the final shape will now be able to stack to 3 at a time instead of just 1. You'll also no longer need to visit the Enclave, as you can slot these mementos on your craftable and enhanced weapons from the inspection screen. Now when the final shape launches, your mementos under consumables will show as faded, as they will no longer be stored alongside the player consumables. Now, once the faded memento is dismantled, you'll see a +1 memento added in the weapon inspection screen as a virtual currency. So if you're not seeing them, guys, just delete them. Now, for players who figured out how to get around the original memento stack size limits, this will allow you to dismantle all those mementos safely, even if you temporarily go over the intended stack limit of 3. Now, if you're holding 3 or more of a particular memento, it will not drop again until you spin your mementos to be under that stack. Now, lastly, subclass fragments are being reduced at Ikora. They'll now cost 10,000 glimmer instead of 25,000 glimmer. Now change number 16, arguably one of the best changes Bungie is including in this expansion, and that is a rework to our HUD. For a long time, our HUD has been overcrowded. There were many times that you didn't know if a buff was active or not, as everything was competing for that small little spot right there on the left-hand side of your screen. Now though, with the launch of the final shape, this information is going to be much clearer, and it's going to be separated based on relevance. At the very top, under your health bar, you're going to have critical information. This is normally tied to certain mechanics. In this image, we see unstable light during the Gorgoroth encounter of Kingsfall. Now, weapon-related modifiers will be found above your super meter. Here we can see the perk Keep Away being procced, and then to the right of it, we have our origin trait also being procced, which is Harmonic Resonance. Then on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see your additional buffs, things like armor charge, ability timers, subclass verbs, etc. Now, there's also going to be prioritization for these buffs, with the most important ones showing up over the least important ones. So for instance, highest priority are things like activity information. These are buffs that guide your play in that activity. Next is second-to-second gameplay choices. These are buffs that are required to play your build effectively, such as armor charge or ability cooldowns like Tango cooldown. And then short to medium-term gameplay choices, things like subclass verbs like amplified, weapon damage buffs, or temporary ability bonuses such as those from aspects and fragments. These are all prioritized this way. Then passive buffs, which is the final one, includes ability regeneration buffs and temporary stat boosting buffs. Now, our buff icons will also be received receiving a cleaner look to them, which you can see on the screen here, with green buffs and red buffs now having a thick line on the top or bottom respectively to make them easier to read, with the timer now being in front of the icon instead of after the buff name. Let me just say, guys, after playing with this myself, this is a fantastic change. Change number 17. Rahool is receiving a vendor rework, along with some changes to how exotics will work in the final shape. And this one's very important, guys. In addition to Rahool's current material exchange and exotic focusing options, he will be receiving his own reputation system with rank up rewards and will also be the source of any new exotic armor that is released. Now, to earn reputation with Rahool, you'll want to decode engrams. Now, exotic precision decryption, which is tier 2 focusing, will give you the most reputation, followed by advanced, which is tier 1 decryption when opening an exotic engram without focusing, and lastly, opening a prime engram. Now, on his reward track, you'll earn prime engrams, enhancement cores, enhancement prisms, an ascendant shard, and exotic ciphers. Now, once you fill the reputation track and reset your rank, you'll gain access to a new tier of exotic focusing. This third tier will allow you to purchase any piece of exotic armor for any character on your account for the cost of 1 exotic engram and 1 exotic cipher. This is why ciphers are so important now. Now, this will include the new exotic armor launching in the final shape, which is usually on a 1-season delay before it can be focused. Now, there will also be no weekly limit to using this tier of focusing, so as long as you have the resources, you can keep rolling for armor. Now, because Rahool is becoming the new hub for exotic armor, this will be altering previous sources of acquiring exotics, while sectors will keep the same drop rates for exotics, but instead will drop engrams to allow you to focus them at Rahool. Niamuna will also still drop exotic armor when you complete a Vex Strike Force, but no new armor will be added to the drop list. Now, the topic of exotic armor, something that Bungie has added here, which is amazing, is the ability to upgrade those exotic armor pieces and essentially allow them to become artifice exotics. That's right, guys. After it's been fully masterwork, you will have the ability to slot in a +3 stat at the cost of 1 exotic cipher and 10,000 glimmer. Now, change number 18. We have a Hawthorne and clan rework. Now, just to burst your bubble, no, we're not getting clan houses. Not yet. We need it though, Bungie. But Hawthorne will also be receiving a reward track, along with some changes to how clans work. Now, on Hawthorne's reward track, you'll be able to earn prime engrams, enhancement cores, raid banners, and ascendant alloys, as well as ascendant shards. Now, you'll earn reputation towards Hawthorne and your clan by completing activities with higher difficulty activities giving more progress, and playing with clanmates giving a large bonus to progression. Now, clan bounties will also be receiving some changes, with the Nightfall bounty no longer requiring clan level 6 to claim, and 2 new bounties being introduced for seasonal content and for dungeons. Now, clan bounties will also grant some clan reputation when completed. Clan XP on the back end is also getting a rework to be more consistent, along with some tuning to XP sources. TLDR, guys, players should have an easier time earning XP for their clans. Now, there's going to be clan perks, and these are getting a complete refresh. So for clan level 2, you'll have live fire sale, where raid banner sold from Hawthorne costs less. Clan level 3, bountiful bounties. The first clan bounty completed each week grants an exotic engram. Clan level 4 of Hawks and Pigeons. Raid rotator challenges grant spoils of conquest. Trial wins grants additional trials reputation. Clan level 5 weapon ritualists earn bonus crafted weapon XP from completing ritual playlist activities. And clan level 6 alloy completionists completing all clan challenges in a week grants an ascended alloy. Good changes overall, guys. Again, Bungie, give us clan houses. We need it, man. Clan houses, clan ships. I don't care what it is. I just want a social hub for me and the clan. Now, change number 19. We are getting something called Pathfinder. Now, Pathfinder is a new pursuit system that's being introduced in the final shape. Now, this will be consolidating bounties, patrols, and weekly vendor challenges into one streamlined system. Now, in the Pathfinder, you'll find 20 objectives divided into 5 tiers, all leading to one big reward at the end. Now, to reach this reward, you must complete objectives and claim them to form a path from left to right. Now, the beauty of the system is that you can do these retroactively, meaning if you played Crucible yesterday or you hit up Gambit last night, even if that's on the later track of your Pathfinder, progress toward those nodes will have been made. But the beautiful thing about these nodes is you have the flexibility to choose what you want. And every time you claim an objective, you receive rewards and progress that path towards that final reward. And then claiming that final reward allows you to reset Pathfinder. Now, resetting Pathfinder will cost Glimmer, but it opens a new set of objectives to complete and a new final reward. Now, these resets will be a mixture of authorial control and procedural generation. So your cards will diverge from other guardians when you reset. Now, as long as you have the Glimmer, you can reset your Pathfinder after claiming the final reward as many times as you want each week. But the value of the final reward will diminish. Each weekly reset, the value of the final rewards will also reset though, and every guardian will start the week with the same fresh card. Now, starting out, there will be 2 Pathfinders, one that replaces the bounty and the weekly challenge systems for core ritual activities, and one for the Pale Heart. Now, the Ritual Pathfinder will span all ritual activities, including Vanguard Strikes, Nightfalls, Onslaught, Gambit, and Crucible. Now, the Pale Heart's Pathfinder will include what you would normally expect from destination bounties, with the addition of some new location-based objectives called field assignments, which when they are featured will be marked directly on the destination map. On the screen here, we have our objective rewards as well as our rewards for our first path completion, that being 25 vendor rep and 4,000 XP for objective rewards. Then for our first path completion, we have a redacted exotic, a powerful tier 3 Ingram, that being Pale Heart gear, and 1 rank of vendor reputation and 25,000 XP. And then for Ritual Pathfinder rewards, our first 3 completions will give you a Prime Ingram, Enhancement Prism, 150 Bright Dust, and 25,000 XP. I will say, guys, the rewards do dip off quite a bit for those later resets, so there are diminishing returns. This is definitely a system we're going to be looking at, guys. We're going to be weighing the pros and cons between this new system Bungie is introducing to us and what we're used to, which is really just bounties. I'm excited to see how this plays out though. Now, change 20. Last here on the list, I want to go over some quality of life changes that you can expect to see tomorrow. First up, everyone is getting 100 more vault space. I don't know about you guys, but I need it. Now, this brings up our total to 700. Shaders are also receiving a rework, with the goal of this update is to help make the shader icons more accurately reflect the colors and textures they will apply. In our previous system, only 4 colors are shown, even though they apply 6 colors. Now, another big quality of life change is we're getting more in-game loadout slots with the final shape, since 10 per character just isn't enough. Tyson Green himself, the new game director, revealed that they will be adding more loadout slots, but didn't specify how many. But he did say that they won't be difficult to obtain, as he believes they'll be part of Guardian ranks, which makes sense. Now, lastly, before we end this off, there are a few things we're not 100% sure on, as they haven't been talked about in months. We're supposed to be receiving a Xur rework in the final shape, but nothing has been said about that since last year with former game director Joe Blackburn. Quote, "We want to do 2 things here. We want to make Xur a really exciting experience. You're going to be excited about what Xur is selling this week. 2, we're going back to strange coins." Now, I haven't heard anything else about this. We were also told that Gambit would be receiving some minor updates with the return of the Cathedral of Scars Dreaming City map, with additional enemy types such as Shadow Legion and Lucent Hive. But again, there hasn't been any mention of that as well. Overall, guys, despite those couple items that may not be included in the final shape launch, can I just say, holy hell, we've got a lot of stuff to unpack in this next expansion. We tried to include literally everything we possibly could to keep it at 20 biggest changes, but dude, there were so many things to talk about. We could have gone on, and a lot of these were actually multiple changes consolidated into one. I'm super excited to be jumping into this next expansion with all of you. I'm sure many of us are here for the conclusion of the Light and Darkness saga. If you want to come by, guys, we will be streaming every single day this week over on our Twitch channel. We're going to be putting in some degenerate hours all the way up until the raid, and it's being speculated this is going to be the hardest raid Bungie has ever made. So guys, if you get the chance, I would love for y'all to come join us. Let me know in the comments down below which change you're looking forward to the most. And fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.